This is LAPD stalking by helicopter. That's people that stay crossing path and engineer light on a skateboard. That's relevant positioning, audible activity. And while the entity flies directly over my apartment, and they're monitoring what I'm doing online, I'll show you right now. Heather Till's going to federal prison. She is indeed going to federal prison. All right, Heather Till and Don Nagel, he was also CC'd on this criminal act while the entity's group stalking in concert with LAPD, and they reference LAPD in the employee warning notice with whom they are group stalking all of the people of the state. This is a demon in the third party, and engaging in the third party conduct, stalking in the path with light. All right, and so while the entity is engaged in group stalking, they are referencing this documentation that I accumulate for all of their federal prosecution while the entity created a document referencing an employee warning notice while they are indeed engaged in criminal conduct. And that's why the whole property is going to be subject to federal prison while they are clearly engaged in what is the federal group stalking and monitoring, which is terrorism, and the entity that's engaging in terrorism seeks to obstruct justice. Okay, that is the criminal system. And let me be clear, Dominic Choi is the specific state actor that's referenced in the documentation that the entity sought to reference in this employee notice. Dominic Choi is subject to federal prison for that. The entity seeks to specifically threaten as you are documenting. Remember, the entity is monitoring and engaging in the elements of monitoring pursuant to not only where I'm at, what I'm doing, but as I do it, specifically utilizing a specific point of documentation to reference. Dominic Choi is thereby communicating a threat, and Dominic Choi is still to date engaging in terrorism while the entity is specifically being referenced in evidence that the people of the state are monitoring with. They're group stalking with LAPD, and LAPD is targeting flying over my apartment, violating quiet enjoyment, and then being referenced in the documentation that, again, Heather Till is referencing in that criminal act that is the employee notice. The employee warning notice. This is the group stalker giving me a warning about what they're engaging in, okay? They are monitoring right now. Let me be clear, nobody has to be standing outside. No one is sleeping. This is engineered light. The sun rises and sets to this property. This is absurd with regard to everything that's in that notice. The third-party group stalkers and the state, they're engaged in 24-hour surveillance. They're not sleeping. That's why the entity is stalking 24/7 in helicopters. That's why you have engineer light 24/7. That's why you have the ongoing maintenance of the elements of monitoring pursuant to what I do as I do it, including whether it's 3:32 in the morning. Okay, engaged in ceaseless surveillance. And while I am right now online, all of the entity is engaged in federal stalking on the venue of the internet as I engage in a new behavior. So I'm exploring new aspects of the app online. And as I go to and click on something that I haven't clicked on before, immediately the entity is sounding helicopter activity, meaning they're not going anywhere. All the entity did right now was fly directly over my apartment, which is to cross path while a third party group stalker, a demon, is in position, creating a method of light in the path, just like Ty Lee and his son were doing, using a method of light activity in the parking lot, and they're all in engineered light. The entity is doing so in concert with the entity that flies directly over my head in a helicopter, and the entity is doing so acting in concert with their knowledge with what I'm doing on the internet. Okay, this is the concerted pattern of conduct that's underway on the internet and in relevant position. This whole property is group stalking, and they are corporately engaged in surveillance online, using communication devices, and while living at the property, engaging in maintenance of presence. This is why you have Yu Kim that's walking on the sidewalk in the previous video, and his shadow is behind him, then it's beside him, then it's in front of him, then it's beside him. That's not natural light activity, nor is that caused by an ordinary street lamp. All right, this is the entity that's acting as one while they are engaged in hovering surveillance where there is no sleep. They are not enjoying any quiet enjoyment. They're engaged in surveillance with the state of California, who's flying over my apartment at 9:40 at night while they are monitoring and engaging in surveillance online regarding what I'm doing on the internet. As I click on something I haven't clicked on before, the tune-in aspect of my Amazon link, as soon as I click on that, the entity is engaging in what is stalking new conduct, both in relevant position and or online. The entity is engaging in the elements of monitoring. This is light activity and relevant positioning, and this is what they do under the fake sun while engineer light moves across the Silverview Townhomes apartment building as well. This entire property is filled with third parties, 35 units, filled with terrorists and sex offenders, and they're monitoring engaging in the sex offense right now with the state that's hovering over me and around in helicopters. All the entity did was fly over in helicopter. They didn't go anywhere. That's how they're able to engage in what is knee-jerk conduct with simultaneity to what I do or physically move. They are sounding helicopter activity and flying over. Okay, that's a demon that's honking their horn as I move my knee in my apartment. Engaging in surveillance, having perpendicular shadows. P.O.C. Perpendicular shadows. That's the entity that's being referenced while they're engaging in a sex offense, group stalking, as a whole property, as a community. This whole community is going to federal prison. Everybody's going to federal prison. It is currently 9:45 p.m. This is P.O.C. This is documentation of what is not only Title 18, Section 22618, subsections 1 and 2, federal stalking, engaging in the elements of monitoring while keeping me under surveillance online, shadow in front, shadow behind, moving all about, engaging in surveillance in a vehicle in order to use it as a means of audible activity with simultaneity, looking up like she's bewildered. This is what the people of the state do when they're delivering packages and you're capturing the light source. Perpendicular shadows. Okay, shadows on both sides. P.O.C. This is what they do. They look bewildered while you document them engaging in the criminal conduct while the entity's flying over repeatedly in helicopters. But they don't hear that, though. This is the P.O.C. It is 9:45 p.m.